Hey, so once again, I asked you guys in my community tab to throw some topics at me. Emotional stability was one of them, and I thought this was very interesting. So Sierra said, would the world be better if we were able to handle our emotions? Is enemy number one nothing more than our... That's not what she said. Is enemy number one nothing but our inability to control our own minds? What about teaching mindfulness, yoga in schools, restorative justice? Then this person said, the importance of being emotionally honest with ourselves. So it's clearly, a topic that a lot of people are thinking about. So this is going to sound so stupid, but so my boyfriend and I have been watching The Crown. I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you have, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But basically, the idea of suppressing emotions, suppressing sort of individuality, and keeping everything cool and calm, and sweeping everything under the rug and making sure that everything on top looks great. So like putting on airs is a very old school idea. This sort of like waspy, like everything has to look perfect, everything's put together, you dress a certain way, you speak a certain way, and nobody talks about what they're feeling, what they're really feeling. Everything is very like passive aggressive, which is an incredibly damaging idea. It's super fucked up. And I guess the idea of things like mindfulness, meditation, just communication, being upfront with people is sort of viewed by those as like inappropriate or wishy-washy. So what's interesting, Sierra says, would the world be better if we were able to handle our emotions? And that I think is very interesting because it could be interpreted a few different ways. What does handling them mean? Because I could see from one perspective someone saying that like handling your emotions would be suppressing them. In other words, not becoming emotional in certain, instances, I guess. Sort of sweeping that under the rug, handling it. Like a lot of the times when someone's like handle it, it's like just get through it, But then you're not necessarily doing anything about it or confronting it, I guess. Is enemy number one nothing but our inability to control our own minds? Once again, what do you mean by controlling your mind? I feel like this is definitely like a larger thing. I would say that it's more about understanding them, understanding your emotions, and understanding like where your mind is. Because I can say right now, one of my faults? Is that what I want to say? Is that what I want to call it? Is not understanding my emotions or what I'm feeling in the moment. I'm very good at letting them all pile on and then getting extremely overwhelmed and having a mental breakdown and then letting it all out and feeling better, which I don't know if that's like the best way to handle it, but that's how I happen to handle it. I think that's a lot of, actually, and I don't think she would mind me saying this because she's talked about it on the internet, which is how I know, but Katie, formerly known as Lustrelux, I love referring to her as that, by the way. Katie, formerly known as Lustrelux. Because I don't know if she wants people saying her last name a lot. Anyway, she and I handle things very similarly from what she said. And I don't know if you've seen her podcast with John, but I can't remember what it's called. What is it called? Must Be Nice podcast, where they discuss like more personal things. She talks about how like it's very difficult for her to confront what she's feeling or understand what she's feeling in the moment. And that's exactly how I feel. I don't really recognize it. It's sort of like I push it down. And then again, like I said, wait for it to just bubble up. And like there are all these things that have just like totally stressed me out. And then I freak out and have a mental breakdown. Cathartic. So if you're talking about understanding those emotions, it's something that I've been trying to work on. It's not easy. I think it comes a lot easier to some people, and I think it has a lot to do with like how you grew up and how you communicated while you were growing up, and also just like, I don't know, where you are mentally and your experiences. It has so many things contribute to how you interpret your own thoughts. But what I thought was interesting was the concept of, teaching mindfulness or yoga in schools. Let me read some of these comments underneath this. So this person says, I don't think it's actually possible to fully control our emotions, or maybe that's really just me. At least I can say with certainty there are some humans who cannot achieve this. Yeah, and now people are going into something about the prison system and rehabilitation. I'm not getting into that right now. I would agree saying that people are not fully in control of their emotions. I don't know if you necessarily should be, because that sounds like a suppressive thing. It sounds like being completely in control of your emotions is like not showing them. Does that make sense? That's what it sounds like to me. It's understanding them. Understanding what's causing certain emotions, where they're coming from, how to deal with them in that moment. Sometimes you just have to like bawl your fucking eyes out to feel better. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do have to just like handle them. Like you have to suppress them. I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing to just like have a breakdown every single time. I guess in my mind, I'm constantly thinking about like just being really upset and crying. This obviously applies to like anger and maybe even happiness. Like, so you can't just like get crazy angry anywhere or at any point in time and lose your mind, Like you do have to handle that. But I will say, I thought the school thing was very interesting because I think there are a lot of really important things that apply to everyone that we're not taught. For instance, like people talk about, math up until a certain point. Even though I suck at math, I don't think that it should be removed from schools, I think it's a good thing to learn. But calculus? I don't know if I need that as much as I need, a class where you're maybe more introspective, or it helps you become more introspective. I think a lot of those things are sort of like dismissed as being sort of wishy-washy or pseudoscience type stuff, but I don't think that that is necessarily like how it should be categorized. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Obviously schools are different. I never had anything like that in any of my schools. Not that I can think of. Although I wasn't very involved in my college. I kind of just like went to class and then went home. So I don't even know if they offered anything like that. It's very possible. I do think that the world would be better if people understood their emotions more and where they were coming from. And that's not an easy thing for people to do, because you have to spend a lot of time thinking about yourself and your experiences. And most of the time it's like it's an analysis of your past, because it's very difficult to figure out what these like things that you're encountering now, these outside influences, media influences, family influences, mental influences, whatever, how they're going to shape you. It's a lot easier to get to that point where you're fucked up and look back and be like, oh, that's why. You know what I mean? So I would say that Sierra's phrasing of this statement and or question is interesting. It's an interesting one. I think it's very telling. And I would like to hear from Sierra again. When you say handle your emotions, what does that mean? I'm also interested in people's opinions about the difference between understanding and handling. What instances, I guess, would you feel like you need to suppress certain emotions? Because I definitely feel like I don't show a lot of emotion, most of the time. Any of them, really. I don't get overly happy. I definitely get depressed. But I'm pretty like baseline most of the time, which I think contributes to the sort of like swell of emotion and then breakdown, I don't really know how to handle that. I would find that in public situations where there's lots of people around, nothing. I could chop my fucking hand off and I'm not gonna like shed a tear because I don't share those emotions with outside people. Does that make sense? I'm like not a super open person. So like I could injure myself really badly and like will not, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And then I'll handle it later. You know what I mean? Can other people relate to that? I don't know if that's what you mean by handling emotions, because I feel like there's such a range of just emotions in general. But I'm really intrigued by this concept of like teaching certain things in school that aren't being taught, because I think there's a lot of that. And I would be very interested to hear from anyone who had maybe a class or a teacher, like just a teacher who stressed those sorts of things, and in what class maybe they had it. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't remember anything like that from my high school experience. And college was basically like, let me get through these shitty classes so that I can get to my art classes and like do shit that I actually care about. I think we need to discuss the education system next. Okay, great talk.